By the turn of the 20th century, America had become the leading industrial power in the world. And as events unfolded in the East and threatened to drag most of Europe into war, American nationalism grew. This nationalism, unlike nationalism in Europe, was not based on ethnicity or loyalty to a monarch, but was based on strong principles, democracy, government for the people, and individual rights. In the midst of this growing nationalism, an unlikely but truly important hero stepped forth and made a name for himself and his state in this maturing American society.
I still did feel somehow it was wrong, terrible wrong, for human beings to take each other's lives. Alvin C. York.
Alvin Colum York was born in the rural area of Pall Mall, Tennessee, in a 2-room log cabin on December 13, 1887. He was the third son of William and Mary, and the family lived on the 75 acres given to them by Mary's father. York's father died in 1911, leaving Alvin at the age of 24 to support his family. For 3 to 4 years afterward, York was a hard-drinking, gambling, roughhousing man. After his mother persuaded him to change his ways, life was good for Alvin. Gracie Williams had agreed to marry him, and he had been named elder in the Church of Christ and Christian Union.
Simultaneously, war began to break out in Europe. The famed Great War would be caused by many things, including previous imperial aggressions and powerful alliances. The conflict would begin as a result of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. His killing would create a domino effect of European war declarations as a result of their alliances.
In 1904, the British and French signed the Entente Cordiale Treaty. This allied the two nations for the first time in recent history. They both resolved their colonial disputes and agreed to monitor Germany's rapid expansion. In 1907, Russia was added to the treaty. This completed the Triple Entente. When the war got underway, the Entente's name changed to the Allied Powers. Opposing the Allied Powers was the alliance of the Central Powers. Before the war, the Central Powers consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. As the fighting began, though, Italy didn't fight for the Central Powers. Italy changed sides on entering the side of the Allies with the Treaty of London in 1915.
Finally, the war caught up to the United States. One reason was the sinking of the Lusitania, a British cruise liner which was holding 139 American citizens. The United States was furious about the attack on the innocent civilians. The United States also had previously forced Germany to sign the Sussex Pledge, which stated the United States would break off diplomatic relations if they continued to torpedo innocent ships. Soon after, the Zimmermann telegram, sent from Germany to Mexico, was then intercepted by the United States. The threat of Mexico joining Germany in the war pressured America even further. With newspapers covering all these events, patriotism rose to an all-time high. War was believed to be beneficial to a country's economy and political power. The war to end all wars was too enticing for the United States to pass up. War was declared on April 6, 1917.
After the United States entered World War I, its eventual hero, Alvin C. York, received his draft notice on June 5, 1917. York, being a very religious man, denied the notice and claimed conscientious objector status. Because York's church was too small, it was not recognized and his denial was rejected. York was drafted anyway.
Though he displayed great skill with the rifle of basic training, York was still against killing in general. York's reluctance to do what would eventually make him famous is an intriguing factor in his story. Realizing York's marksmanship, G. Edward Buxton, his commanding officer, convinced Alvin that sometimes war is justified if it's for the correct cause. Soon, Alvin and his 82nd Infantry Division were sent off to France. The crowning moment of Alvin's life was soon to come.
As war progressed, the Triple Entente became more aware of the power of Germany and her allies. Many new forms of warfare emerged on both sides. The new techniques were often gruesome, but quite efficient when confronting and neutralizing the enemy. Many called into question the morality and ethics of these strategies. Others questioned the necessity of the war.
World War I featured an explosion of new war technologies. Most notable among these inventions were the barbed wire, submarines or U-boats, machine guns, airplanes, tanks, mustard gas, and landmines. The use of machine guns led to trench warfare in Western Europe. There was no place to take cover from the relentless machine gun fire. In order to take lower casualties, men dug trenches into the ground for cover. It also became imperative to take out enemy machine gunners, simply because they could wreak so much havoc with their rapid-fire weapons.
This is the atmosphere of war that Alvin and his fellow soldiers entered into. Trench warfare had made the fighting slow and grueling. However, the Western powers were on the offensive and gaining ground. In France, the Allies needed only one more successful offensive strike to crush the Germans' chances of winning the war. This final blow would come with the campaign of Meuse-Argonne Forest.
On October 8, 1918, Alvin and his group of 16 men snuck behind enemy lines at the Battle of Meuse-Argonne Forest. More than half of Alvin's men would be hit by enemy machine gun fire that day. Despite the danger, Alvin, in a barrage of seamless sharpshooting, killed at least 25 German soldiers. The rest of the enemy force, an additional 132 men, surrendered immediately. York was said to have silenced at least 35 enemy machine gun nests that day. York's actions were extremely significant. He helped to lead the final offensive strike of the war. The German forces would sign an armistice, ending all of the fighting just a month later. Alvin York received a Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions. He became the most famous and revered American hero of World War I. However, Alvin was truly ashamed of his actions. He maintained that God said it was truly wrong to kill. In fact, Alvin rejected any fame or money that came with being a celebrity.
When Alvin returned home from his adventures in Europe, he came back with a heightened sense for the need for education and believed it was his duty to educate the people of his native valley. He began raising money for a high school, which would later become known as the Alvin C. York Technical Institute in 1926. The institute remained private until 1937, when it was taken over by the State Board of Education. In the next few decades, it would gain a reputation and was as one of the highest-ranking schools in the nation, and would receive the National School of Excellence Award in 1989. To this day, the school maintains a high level of excellence.
Eventually, a movie was made about Alvin York's life. It was called Sergeant York. Sergeant York inspired American patriotism when released in 1941. This was a time when the United States was on the brink of war again. Alvin only reluctantly agreed to have the movie made after he was promised all the profits would go to funding education.
I'm here today in Murfreesboro, Tennessee at the Alvin C. York Veterans Affairs Hospital. Established in 1938 under Franklin D. Roosevelt and the Public Works Administration, it provides primary, subspecialty, medical, surgical, and psychiatric care for veterans. Through the VA, Alvin's legacy of effort for reforms for education and healthcare lives on. Alvin had a tremendous impact at the Battle of Argonne Forest, but may have had an even greater impact on the development of education and healthcare in Tennessee.